Yo, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. Now, today we have got a pretty damn extensive interview with the developers of the brand new upcoming MMORPG called Bellatores. Now, I have already covered this MMORPG on my channel already, but this is fresh news, guys. They go really deep into the, into the game's content and the philosophies behind the game. So this is a very long article, like I said, so I'm going to try and cut to the chase. We're just going to go right into it. So don't forget to like the video, leave me a comment down below. What is your thoughts once you've watched the video? What do you think about this? And yeah, anyway, let's get on with it. So first question, they're saying, nowadays it seems that MMORPGs in Korea have become the default to include mobile. Now, of course, bear in mind again, guys, this has been translated from Korean to English, so some things might not make sense, but basically they're saying that TLDR is, the reason for this is because developers nowadays, they're just thinking completely about making money instead of an actual game that is going to be fun and good. They did say though, Bellatores may have a mobile version in the future, but that is really, really far away. And currently they just want to provide the best experience for PC only. There's going to be no mobile, no console, guys. This is literally the first one in a long time where it's just purely for PC. So interesting. Now they're saying closed beta test is now going to be held. This is 2 years after you first started to talk about the game. What is the current development progress? And they say currently the game is in a good enough state where they think that it's CBT ready basically. The core content and the basic systems has been completed to a large extent. The major systems such as the combat, character growth system has secured basic stability, and they plan to further develop this by receiving obviously feedback from us players, through the CBT. Additionally, since it is technically the first service, they're going to focus on securing server and client stability to minimize obviously technical problems that may occur, and guys, it's going to occur during this CBT. So they have tried to provide an intuitive interface and a user experience for the UI and the UX so that players can enjoy the game more comfortably. And throughout the CBT, they're going to verify the convenience of actual users and obviously listen to the feedback, the negative feedback, the positive feedback, the usual stuff, right? Now, they're saying the question was regarding the worldview of Bellatores. It was only mentioned that it is set in a medieval style, but could you please explain more, more specifically? And they've said that the world of Bellatores is not a typical medieval fantasy setting. To put that in context, when the king dies and the young prince ascends to the throne, the regent seizes power and becomes tyrannical, taking advantage of the chaos. The five lords begin to move in with their own causes and ambitions to regain the kingship, and the player will belong to one of those families, and then there'll be obviously conflicts and there'll be wars. So interesting. It's going to all be about the five families, guys, the factions basically. Now, normally when you're talking about such things, the name of the continent or something like that is usually introduced first, but it was unique that you guys didn't. And they said, that's right, whilst presenting users with simple core goals such as the battle for the throne, the power, the core of the game is to create each play within it. In that sense, the main quest is not something that you have to do basically, but you can look at it as like a navigation. In fact, the five families in the game, they all have different motives, desires, and goals. And as the player, you can freely decide whether to follow it or play as they please. It's largely divided into combat and life. But if you don't like RvR content, you're thinking about a direction where you can enjoy it within, like, more casually basically. There's quite a few people who like MMORPGs with strong life content such as Arcade, and they are thinking about the gathering, farming and housing. So they're trying to say that there is going to be an MSQ, but it's going to be more sandboxy, and that way you're going to have more freedom. Well, that's fair enough. Now, they're saying that there was 12 icons in the video, but I'm curious, what are they? They said all 12 types of weapons are composed of realistic weapons based on the medieval atmosphere. So each weapon has a distinct combat style and a role. and the aspect of the battle changes greatly depending on what you choose. So for example, a one-handed sword is obviously a melee weapon that uses quick attacks and fire skills. The scepter is the only weapon that can heal, and it plays an important role in the party. Then we have a fire staff, which is huge for me. I love my fire staff, I love my mages. That can perform long-range magic attacks using various elemental attributes, and it can deal a big AoE damage basically. So in the closed beta test, you're going to be able to use all of the weapons. Then after that, they're going to refine the balance based on obviously our player feedback. So the common mastery part of combat is also noticeable, but what are the items included in the mastery? So they said it's composed of arcane skills that are different from normal attack skills. These skills are both auxiliary and powerful during battle, and they require strategic judgment when using them. Interesting. So arcane skills include teleporting a short distance forward, temporarily increasing your attack power, or becoming immune to hits or status ailments. The effect is a powerful one, but it has a short duration and a long cooldown. Okay, cool. So it's powerful, but you have to pay attention to your cooldown. These skills must be obtained by farming skill books, and they are limited to 2 at the same time. Depending on which skill you choose, it is expected it will have a great impact on not only your fighting style, but the division of roles within the team. Okay, interesting. Then they talk about the fact that obviously there's a lot of farming introduced, and there's a big focus on crafting and trading. And they have said, yes, the basic weapon skills, you learn those with proficiency points, but your common skills and arcane skills are learned from skill books that are dropped by specific monsters. It's not just the bosses that drop skill books, but normal monsters also drop, and certain monsters drop specific skill books. Okay, so we can try and target farm these books basically. And then once after learning a skill with that skill book, you then need to consume the secret book to level it up. Okay, so the reason for this was they wanted to avoid dropping items, so that they were worried that the rewards and the dopamine you get from defeating monsters was too low. So at this stage, we adopted the method of dropping skill books that would unlock the common and arcane skills. Skill stones are there to increase the skill level, which is also dropped from monsters. And then after that, they will continue to add new common arcane skills through updates, and they want to increase the fun of hunting monsters to get them. Okay, that's cool. Another reason why they chose this method was to make differences between users. They thought it would be an element that differentiates the skill book that the user requires and the different battle concepts depending on the level, which is a strategic choice. It's not just a way to drop one ingredient with a low probability. Yeah, exactly. So normally, guys, as you know, especially with Korean MMOs, there's a very, very, very low drop rate. So that's cool. I'm not going to read, by the way, guys, this is a very long interview, so I'm not going to read every single question. I will link this article in the description box below. I'm just talking to you guys about the most important ones that I've seen here. So they're talking about, it was said that the equipment is not obtained by hunting, but only by crafting and trading. But does this also support like one-on-one transactions between users, so player-to-player trading? And they said in the CBT, this does not support one-to-one trading. Currently, the exchange-centered structure is adopted first to prevent the distortion of items' values and to maintain a stable economic flow in the game. However, if there is a specific content or special situation that will require direct transactions between users, there is room to add that in the long term. For now, they believe that the key is to fully experience the exchange infrastructure. So I assume they mean like an auction house. And for the time being, the exchange will not be introduced. Okay, yeah, fair enough. They just want to test out the auction house system, I guess. So going further on, they were saying that 5 days seems a little bit disappointing for a CBT, for an MMO, but they're curious about what you want to be verified during those 5 days. So they have said what they are trying to be tested is during the test for the 5 days, the first 3 of those are configured so that you can grow from the village. The key to that period is to enjoy the basic quests, feel the process of gradually growing from a low level, and the basics of gathering and crafting. However, the development team has adjusted the growth speed just a little bit faster, so that the overall content, so because it's a beta, guys, they're going to speed it up a little bit. So just remember, if you get to play the beta, the leveling process has been sped up. So from the 4th day, high speed growth is going to be added, and the highest tier items based on the CBT will also be added, so that almost all players can enjoy the content they have not been able to play. Okay, that's fair enough. Interesting. Now, this was a really big question here. They said that the CBT only supports Korea, but are you testing only in Korea, or are you adding overseas? And they answered with, applications are accepted both domestically and overseas. From our point of view, the purpose of the test is mainly for Korea, but they're surprised that there's actually way more applications from us overseas, which of course we're very interested in an MMO. They said while it is true that Bellatores has been aimed at the North America and the Western, the Western areas from the beginning of our development, but they thought it would be right first to refine the level of the game's perfection rather than rushing to translate it into English, basically. So they want to basically take their time, test it. It's in Korean. They don't want to rush the translations and stuff. But guys, they're saying they are accepting Western applications as well. So if you haven't already done it, which you should have, go ahead to go to Steam and request access on Steam, and fingers crossed you should get in. They've basically talked about here where this game is definitely a seamless open world. They asked them, how are you going to deal with this with large scale wars and raids? How's the servers going to handle this? And they've said, even if players gather in a certain area or a big large scale battle happens, they're preparing various ways to provide players with a seamless and immersive experience. Okay, so we'll have to wait and see. To this end, they're going to be using technical measures such as dynamic allocation of server instances and zone-based server partitioning. They want to closely review this performance in a real environment through the CBT, which is, of course, it's very different when they're doing in-house testing, and then when you put it on a live server with loads of players from everywhere, things really change, right? Then they talked about optimization. How are you going to be handling optimization? And they've said this is a really important part. And we know this from another recent MMORPG that had a closed beta test. We know optimization. A lot of players get very angry over here if the game is badly optimized, myself included. So they've said in the internal test, they was able to get 150 FPS with the highest option using a 4070 when they used DLSS. But it is not easy to test in a more diverse environment due to the conditions. Therefore, we want to receive user feedback during the CBT to obviously optimize a lot more. So guys, there is going to be DLSS. They're saying on a 4070 with the max out graphics, they got 150 FPS. I'm going to take this with a grain of salt, pinch of salt, because like they've just said, it's not easy to test this properly because they're doing it in-house. So we'll see. We'll have to wait and see. Now, right, character customization. They're saying MMORPGs normally have a high degree of freedom, also expect customization. How are you dealing with this? Now, they've said we're preparing various things because it's something that players are very interested in, but we are currently slightly restricting the body type and height. Since the proportion of PvP and RvR is high, I thought that there might be hit detection and balance issues. Yeah, that's fair enough. Now, before I leave you guys and girls, this is really big. They've basically we did already know this was going to be more of a PvP based MMO, but they've confirmed, guys, very large scale combat RvR GVGs, right? So they have said here, Bellatores, even though it is a game that has been designed around PvP, it must be supported by a sufficient PvE base in order to fully enjoy the PvP. Various elements such as combat proficiency, item crafting, and teamwork are strengthened through PvE, and we aim for a virtuoso cycle that eventually leads to PvP competitiveness. Therefore, they're going to have, bosses and raids. It's not supplementary content, but it's going to be a core part of the game, which is good. We do, a proper MMORPG does need good PvE and good PvP, in my opinion, to be you know, a good game, a good all-rounded game. So that's good to hear. Now we are they're talking about, there is going to be in the CBT, there's a conquest war, which is going to have 2 families. So we're going to be able to test, literally test a war, basically. And then it says here, in the future, they plan to update competitive contents with bigger siege battles where families compete to occupy the central royal castle. And then there's going to be, it says, a 10-10 duel arena. So we'll have to see what that's going to be like. So yeah, guys, what do you think on this? It's sounding pretty damn good from what I can see. There is a lot more other questions as well, talking about like weather, freedom, stuff like that, where you can explore and all of that. So, one thing I do want to actually add in, just to let you guys and girls know, the ones of you that aren't very, you know, you don't really like being ganked in the open world and stuff like that, they have said, so the question was, if you play leisurely during what you want to do out and about in the open world, does this mean that I might be able to get PK'd or get bullied? And it says, Bellatores is centered on PvP, however, it is not a structure that allows PK freely in all regions. It's planned to be divided into a peaceful zone, a neutral zone, and a war zone, which is good, guys. So if you don't want to do open world PvP, you just don't go into these war zones and these conflict zones. PK is not possible in large cities or major towns, and friendly guard NPCs will be placed in some areas to ensure this. However, in the CBT, guys, this is very interesting and strange. There is no PvP restrictions because they want to see, I guess, how players react to this. So in the closed beta test, you're basically going to be free to PK people wherever you like. Now, I don't know how this is obviously going to go down. I do think it's a little bit odd, but whatever, we'll have to wait and see. They have said, like I said, for the main game, there won't be a PK system. So anyway, I'm going to leave it there. Like I said, this has been a really long interview. There's other stuff that I didn't cover, but you can read that if you like in the description box down below. Have a beautiful day. Hope you enjoyed this one. Like and subscribe. See you soon.